star performer in the backcourt. 7 assists. That's your career record, I'm sure.
Career high, yes. Today I was just trying to make plays, and I was finding guys, and when I passed it to them, it seemed like they were hitting the shot. So it's great for my assist total.
How did you learn to be so patient? I mean, people know they play up on you, and you'll coast them, not coast, but be working to get free, and all of a sudden you'll light it up. How'd you learn that?
Well, this year, a lot of teams have been putting a lot of pressure on me because I've been shooting the ball pretty well early in the year. So coaches just told me, to relax, to be patient, to use screens better, and to set people up. And I've never really played the 2 that much, and I think this year, the new coaching staff, I've really worked hard coming off screens, and it's been a big help.
Playing for a guy who was a very good point guard, that's had to help you as well.
Yes, I guards myself and Earl, and Jeff Greer too. Jeff Greer's gotten better. I think as the year's gone on, I think all 3 of us have improved from last year, and it's been a big plus for our team.
You've had great success as a young guy. 2 programs, you did a wonderful job. Is this the most gratifying year in many respects?
It really is, because I felt like if we were to lose today, these guys didn't have enough to show for all the great things they did this year. We've had a couple wins over top 20 teams, but because of our lack of depth, we haven't been able to keep it going. So this one really means a lot to me, and I think a lot to these guys, because they deserve this kind of win.
I think you need a little rest. Both the coaching staff and the players, congratulations to both of you.
Thanks,
Good luck tomorrow.
All right, Raph, thank you very much. And Kevin Bannon, Jeff Billett, thank you as well. Guys, Kevin Bannon's got this program on the upswing a little bit. Got a shot at Georgetown.
He did a great job at Rider College. And don't forget, go back to February 11th. Rutgers beat Georgetown 82-63. Billett had a big game getting 21 points. Dick, this is not going to be like, hey, Hoyas, guess what? Rutgers can play.
Oh, Billett's an outstanding player, can really shoot the 3. And I know they want to recruit his brother badly. He's a great player down at CBA, where they produce a lot of players in South Jersey. And Kevin Bannon and Tommy Amaker were great choices for the Big East. I believe you're going to see a resurgence in the Big East. I think their recruiting's going to go up, and you're going to see more balance in the league. And as we said, Connecticut is outstanding this year, and they're even going to be better next year because they're very, very young.
Yeah, Seton Hall already over 500. Rutgers with a chance to get back to 500 if they can beat Georgetown in the tournament tomorrow. Well, coming up here on ESPN.
Kevin Bannon, the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, taking on the pressure-packed West Virginia Mountaineers, but the Rutgers, they can beat that press. Eric Clark, my man. Rutgers led by 7 at the half and kept it. How about that? Jeff Greer will put it away, and Rutgers goes away, a 72-65 winner.
With 16 points, lays it up and in. Eric Clark had 19 for Rutgers, who will now play Georgetown, by the way. 19 for Clark. Rutgers led by 7 points at the half. In the second half, it'll be Jeff Greer, 2, Avitas, Taneas. This put Rutgers ahead 52-50. They never trailed and won by 7. Tonight,
underway at the Garden. 5 games today and tonight. In the last game of the day's session, Rutgers in black against West Virginia. Jeff Billett for 3. Billett scoring 12 of his 17 in the second half. Freshman Jeff Greer out of Washington Heights putting the exclamation point on the Scarlet Knights. Surprising 72-65 win. First time Rutgers has won a Big East tournament game. And in the 2 earlier games, Georgia
up by 7. Here come the Nears making a second half run. Damian Owens, strong drive, off balance shot. Matt Nears up by 3. And then Rutgers heating up from behind the arc. Earl Johnson 4 for 5 outside today. And then Jeff Billett does the same thing. And then Rob Hodgson nails it from the left side, and Hodgson finds Johnson moving the ball well on the break. And at the end of this is Jeff Greer. Rutgers, for the first time ever, wins a Big East tournament game and does it at Madison Square Garden, 72-65. West Virginia, 22-8. 3-game losing streak, and that is the record they present to the NCAA Men's Basketball Committee. Eric Clark had 19, Billett had 17, 12 of those in the second half. Charlie?
Providence and Notre Dame, Friars in the
hands of West Virginia, turning the Mountaineers back 72-65. Earl Johnson had a great day with 16 points, and Eric Clark had 19 for Kevin Bannon, 14 coming in the first half as the Scarlet Knights led 34-26. West Virginia had taken a brief lead in the second half, but 6 minutes remaining. Rob Hodgson hit a 3 in the corner to put Rutgers up by 5, and they were never headed from there. Jeff Billett contributing 17, hit a big 3. 72-65 was the final. It was the Scarlet Knights' first ever Big East tournament victory.
Well, I think it's, you know, it's significant only in the sense that our guys needed that, and I think the people that care about Rutgers basketball needed that, because this team, I've said all along, they deserved more. You know, for a team that with a 7-man rotation, we might be the smallest team in the league. We don't have an all-conference player. They've given me everything they have, everything, and you know, we've taken it up to a high level a number of times and never been able to keep it there. So to come here and get this win, I think, gives these guys a little something to hang their hat on and say that they did, but we don't want it to stop now.
Other games this afternoon, Providence over Notre Dame.
7 run to end the first half. Jeff Greer to Eric Clark. Watch him go inside. He goes up and slams it home. Clark with 14 points in the first half. Rutgers led 34-27 at the half. Second half, Rutgers down 4. Jeff Billett to Earl Johnson. Gets the tray. Rutgers down by 1. Rutgers down 3. Billett off the pick. Hits the 3. We are tied at 50. More Rutgers. Hodgson from the corner. Billett another 3. 17 points. Career high 7 assists. Here's the exclamation point. Earl Johnson. Jeff Greer slamming it. Rutgers with the big upset win as they beat West Virginia. Rutgers had never won a Big East tournament game before this upset win. Now, this loss could hurt West Virginia's NCAA hopes. Mountaineers end their season losing 3 straight 5 of the last 8. Also,
263 February 11th. Billett had 11 points. This game is going to be 2 cup. I think both of these guys are pretty interesting games, Vic.
Well, you know, Billett can really play. I know they're trying to recruit his brother as well. But the other game, Providence and Connecticut, M&M mismatch. Connecticut marches on. Husky Invitational.
Not so sure.
They win
Not
the
so
tournament.
sure.
They win the tournament.
I'm not so sure it's easy over afternoon. Damian Owens trying to bring the Mountaineers back, who trailed at the half. The off-balance shot does put them up by 3. Rutgers would get hot from behind the line. Earl Johnson. And then Jeff Billett, a guy you like, Dick.
I really like Billett. He can flat out shoot the 3. He's an excellent transition player, a good passer as well.
And the punctuation, Jeff Greer punches it down, and Rutgers knocking out West Virginia, the 12 over the 5 by 7 points.
And Rutgers have confidence going into the Georgetown game. They beat them February 11th, 82-63. And Billett in that game had 11 points against the Hoyas.
West Virginia, 36%. They did not play like a team that is peaking for the postseason now.
Well, I really think, Chris, when you talk about West Virginia situation, you should look at the matchups, Connecticut, Providence, and Georgetown and Rutgers. I mean, look at Georgetown and Rutgers, a 12 and 13 seed. I mean, we said earlier, could that be called the Husky Invitational?
I'll tell you what, I think these teams like West Virginia getting knocked out in the first round of the Big East, you do not want a seeding situation of the NCAA tournament to be down there at 8th or 9th. Why?
Well,
power teams in the second round.
Exactly.
Solheim with a layup for West Virginia. He had 13 in the ball game. Mountaineers take a 3-point lead, but Earl brings Rutgers within 1, and then Billett will land another trifecta. This one ties the ball game up at 50. Rob Hodgson, who was cold in this ball game, only 2 for 8 from the field. He connects for 3. He had 9 points. Rutgers goes up by 5. And then the Scarlet Knights clinch it. Johnson to Greer. Watch the monster jam by Greer. 72-65, all Rutgers.
That hasn't always been there with this group, but they're really learning, you know, how to be tough and how to fight through things and how to be resilient. And, you know, so, yeah, I think tonight should really, you know, give these guys even more confidence that they can handle. When someone like West Virginia makes a run at you, it's a pretty tough run. And to handle that and then get over it, and you make your own little runs, that's significant.
I think we were a little disappointed after we lost our last game to Villanova, so we wanted to come here
This kid's a mature
and
kid,
you know, put forth a real good effort. We felt we played West Virginia very tough at our place and lost a close game. So we weren't, you know, a lot of people were saying this was probably the worst pick for us, you know, worst matchup we could have had, but we didn't feel that way because we played them tough at home, and we've played them tough the last couple of years. So we were confident coming in, and we knew if we did a good job on the boards, it would come right down to the end, and that's what happened.
I mean, this is just another indication of where things are headed. You know, and you know, it feels good. This is our first Big East tournament win. You know, everyone's real happy, and you know, we get a chance to go to war again tomorrow.
His footing. Here's another change.
Against Miami, Chernard.
They didn't bring their white home uniforms, which you have to wear as the higher seed. So one of the managers had to trip back into Jersey tonight to get the white jerseys for tomorrow, because you are the higher seed playing.
Nears. Late second half we go. Jeff Billett loads up, fires dead on target, putting the Knights up 6, 61-55. Then a little bit later, here comes the knockout punch. Earl Johnson, the freshman. Jeff Green down a hatch with authority, 72-65. Rutgers the final. Next opponent, Georgetown, tomorrow afternoon. As for the rest of the...
No one's dismay as Earl Johnson caps it off in style. Rutgers advances 72-65. Next up, they've got Georgetown, who upset Miami. On the scoreboard, we will see Big East Tournament action.
Be for next 4 days and nights, the Big East Tournament. Rutgers in West Virginia, the Mountaineers, ranked number 23 in the country. Eric Clark, the man for the Scarlet Knights, he had 19 points. He ducked in for 2 in the foul. Upset, Rutgers beat West Virginia 72-65 to advance to the quarterfinals against Georgetown.
Earl Johnson was sensational, but what about Billett? You got to like Billett from the trifecta. And then look at his play in transition. What a great look.
Rutgers gets its first ever Big East Tournament win, and West Virginia, a team with 5 senior starters that should be getting stronger at the end of the season, is fading.
Well, they lost 3 in a row. I think they had their moment when they beat Connecticut, and from that moment on, they haven't been the same team. And what a crowd they had that night in Morgantown.
They are very good in Morgantown, not so good when they leave the Mountaineer State. Georgetown and...
Gets Tom Benyon hanging in the air, and then Clark takes it in. He had 14 before the break. After 2 blown chances here to layup, no good. No good. Greg Jones. It is good. He cleans up the mess. He finished with 18, and the Mountaineers were coming back. The Scarlet Knights showed a lot of poise. Rob Hodgson with a 3-pointer, and then Jeff Billett with a 3. He'd finished with 17, and the Rutgers team had a 6-point lead, and then it was a little razzle-dazzle. Leaves it behind for the trailer. Jeff Greer, 2-handed biggie, 72-65 the final. Rutgers beating 23rd ranked West Virginia, the first time that a number 12 seed has ever won in the Big East Tournament. So Rutgers advances to play Georgetown tomorrow. Well, according to a car off.
Their go-to guy, Damian Owens. Mountaineers up by 3. Rutgers would get hot from behind the arc. Earl Johnson, the 3. Good. Jeff Billett for 3. Good. Rob Hodgson for 3. Good. Finishing touches. It's going to be Jeff Greer. Jeff Greer, Rutgers with the big upset. Rutgers wins it by the final of 72-65. This marks the first time in school history the Scarlet Knights have defeated 3 ranked teams in one season. Syracuse and Temple, the other victims. The Mountaineers have dropped 3 in a row. We stay with the Big East. Villanova.
By Tal, let's get you to the scores and the highlights right away. Penn State has a 1-point lead over Wisconsin. The second half still to come, but right now let's continue with scores and highlights. In the Big East, strange day yesterday. Lower seeds winning a couple of the games in Rutgers and Georgetown, 12 and 13 facing each other. The game comes down to this shot. Jeff Billett, like this ball has radar, finds its way in the hole, and Rutgers had swept it out a victory in this one against Georgetown. Another look at it. Billett leans in, drops it down, and Rutgers now goes on to face UConn.
What was great about that shot, it was only 3 for 23 shooting threes, Rutgers. After going 2 for 11 in the first half, the third 3, Dick, was with about 11 minutes to go, 45-44. Billett does it again to give Rutgers the confidence, hey, we can win this game.
Hey, Billett shot the bullet, but think about it. 1976, let all those Rutgers fans dream. It was Dabney, Sellers, Copeland. It was Mr. Bailey and Jordan. What a team. They were undefeated. They went to the Final Four.
Who was the assistant on one of those teams?
No, I was assistant a few years earlier.
I didn't say you were. I just asked who the assistant was.
That was 76. That was the year Quinn Buckner and company went undefeated. The last undefeated team, Indiana.
All right, so Rutgers will go on to face UConn 64-55. Richard Hamilton had 22. Didn't shoot it real well, though.
Well, UConn's won both games this season by 15-17, but you've got a team who, Rutgers, 8-11 2 weeks ago, 2 games away from an NCAA bid.
In the Atlantic,
the Big East quarterfinals, Scarlet Knights in white with the ball. They get it to Jeff Billett, and at the buzzer, he wins the game against Georgetown, 61-60. How about that? The Scarlet Knights pulling off their second huge win in as many days after going winless on the road in conference play all during the regular season. So Rutgers will now play Connecticut in tomorrow's semifinals. Connecticut beat Providence 64-55. The Knicks are playing in
today's Rutgers game. 5 seconds left. Rutgers down by 1. Jeff Billett of Rutgers shoots, and that's it. Rutgers beats Georgetown 61-60 at the buzzer, and Rutgers now plays UConn in the semifinal tomorrow. Back at 6:20 with all the sports. Folks.
All right, Warner, thank you very much. One fan on Boston College tonight, but this afternoon it was the battle of the two lowest seeds that turned out to be the tourney's best finish. 12-seeded Rutgers looked to chop down 13th-seeded Georgetown and move into the semifinals. Kevin Bannon's bunch rallied from a 10-point deficit, took a 1-point lead, but then it's Chernard Long hitting a tough foul line jumper to give Georgetown the lead right there, 60-59, 9.8 ticks to play. Now it's the Scarlet Knights' turn. They get the ball to Jeff Billett. One-hander at the buzzer. Yes, Rutgers wins 61-60. Celebration is on, but wait. Rutgers' next opponent is Jim Calhoun and his nationally ranked.
Big East games today. Rutgers in a thriller. And in Big East.
All right, Lewis, Big East. Here we go at the Garden. Rutgers beats Georgetown at the buzzer 61-60. UConn over Providence 64-55. So Rutgers and UConn in the semifinal. Let's go to the videotape. Rutgers in the home white in the first half. Sam Sanders for Rutgers and the stuff, and he's fouled. Then for Georgetown, Boubacar All with 13 points and the fadeaway. Swish. Now Georgetown by 9 at the half. Second half, Jeff Billett with 18 points, 3-pointer, and it's Rutgers by 1. 12 seconds left. Chernard Long for Georgetown, 18 points. Big shot. And there it is. Swish. Georgetown by 1. Rutgers last chance. Jeff Billett. 3, 2, 1. That's it. Rutgers wins the pennant. Rutgers wins the pennant. So Rutgers now plays UConn tonight, 7 o'clock, Villanova.
2 seconds. Billett. Oh, my goodness.
Wow. Rutgers wins 61-60. Billett had 18 points, none bigger than that one. Next up for the Scarlet Knights, #1 UConn.
Your seatbelt because we are going to go spanning. And fasten also for Rutgers. Big East quarterfinals at the Garden today. Rutgers down by 1 point to Georgetown. Final seconds of regulation. Jeff Billett with a dramatic game-winning shot at the buzzer. 61-60 the final.
It's obviously the highlight of my career so far, and it's a great feeling, and to do it, especially coming out for Rutgers, we're 12 seed, and people really didn't expect much to now be playing in the semifinals. It's a great feeling.
Absolutely. Rutgers will now play UConn in the semis tomorrow. UConn beat Providence 64-55.
Rick Kaufman with you from our Sports Desk studios here in New York. The Big East Tournament has been lacking in excitement the last couple of years, but not this year, and they got another thriller today. Rutgers beats Georgetown at the buzzer 61-60, a great win for them. And I'm sure neither of these mascots thought they'd be back for round 2, but they were back. Rutgers trailed by 9 at halftime and had to go on an 11-2 run early in the second to get back in it. They only connected on 3 of 23 three-pointers today, but Jeff Billett hits a big one. He had 18 in the full 40 minutes. Georgetown had to answer on the defensive end. Trez Kilpatrick had a nice game. He had 10 points. He busts in there, and the Hoyas were up 4. Late in the game, Kevin Bannon's Knights leading by 1. Hoya sophomore Chernard Long calmly sticks the jumper. He finished with 18, but here's the game. Georgetown led by 1, 60-59 with 5.6 to play. Rutgers ran it. Billett gets it with just over 2 seconds to go. He doesn't panic. He shoots the leaner, and as time expires, Rutgers wins 61-60, and Billett from Christian Brothers in New Jersey hits it at home.
Especially at the Garden, I mean, of all places, it's obviously the highlight of my career so far, and it's a great feeling, and to do it, especially coming out for Rutgers, we're 12 seed, and people really didn't expect much to now be playing in the semifinals. It's a great feeling.
I think they defended it well. It's just one of those things that happens. He got in the lane and he got a shot up there, and he got it up there nice and soft, thank goodness, and then it went down. It was tremendously exciting, and it was a great play on Jeff's part.
Next up for Rutgers, UConn. The Huskies had to scramble to avoid the upset, but they do pull away from Providence 64-55. They'll play Rutgers tomorrow night in the semifinals.
Big East Player of the Year, had 22 points and 10 rebounds. Also, Georgetown Rutgers, what a shot from Jeff Billett at the buzzer. 61-60 the final as the Knights take it at 18 points. They are 14-14 for the year. Next up for them, semifinals against UConn. Now let's go.
4 of the Hoyas, 9 turnovers on the afternoon. Rutgers taking advantage of that traveling call. Eric Clark on the rebound gets fouled, so he goes to the line. He hits 2 free throws, just 7 points on the afternoon for Eric Clark, 3 of those coming from the line, helping the Scarlet Knights take a 1-point lead. Georgetown trailing by 1, but not for long. Shenard Long had a team-high 18 points after canning that jumper. Last chance for Rutgers. Jeff Billett had 18 points. The 2 most important coming right there at the buzzer, and Rutgers with the victory over Georgetown one day after upsetting number 22 West Virginia. They beat Georgetown, and the 12th seeded Rutgers team is the lowest seed ever to reach the Big East semifinals. They now take on top seed UConn in the semifinals, and after the game, Jeff Billett talked about his game-winning shot.
My coach said in the huddle, make a strong play, don't settle for a 3. So I was trying to get to the rim. I looked up, there was 2 seconds, and I knew I had to let it go. So I got a good look, and it went in.
Coming up on the
the 12 versus the 13 in a quarterfinal game. Rutgers against Georgetown. Jeff Billett puts the floater. Beats the clock in the final seconds after Georgetown had taken the lead. And a nice job, Coach Bannon. His team has now won 2 games. Another look as Billett, with about a half second to go, got the shot away.
Well, that certainly was the bullet and put out Georgetown. But the next game is so big to Rutgers for this reason. It means whether or not they go to the NIT or the NCAA, they got to be better than at least 500. So they have to win that next game.
Against Connecticut, it'll be tough, but still a great run so far.
Well, Billett hit a key 3-point shot. They only went 3 for 23. That was the only 3 in the second half with 11 minutes to go to give Rutgers the first lead in the second half, 44-43, and they just had enough confidence to pull it out at the end.
Hey, Digger, I think Kevin Bannon's going to be a rising star in coaching. When he gets his own people, watch out.
Don't forget, UConn has beaten Rutgers twice by 15 and 17 during the regular season.
St. John's of BC, Rutgers, and a 13-seed Georgetown, the winner to get the #1 seed Connecticut. Rutgers trying to make a run at least the NIT. There's Jeff Billett working it down. Half second to go. Nails the shot that beats the Hoyas. Pandemonium. Kevin Bannon's team playing well near the end of the season. Another look. He knew exactly how much time he had, guys, to get that shot off.
I'll tell you, sensational little guard. He's been really playing well. Now they get a shot at Connecticut. They have to win that game to get in the NIT. I mean, that's what that game means. Not only the NCAA, we're keeping alive, but an NIT berth.
Don't forget, UConn beat them twice this year by 15-17. Interesting matchup.
That is the lowest seed ever to reach the Big East semifinals. The winner of the game you're watching will take on Syracuse tomorrow. In the ACC, NC State, they pulled off the biggest upset in tournament history last year in the semifinals.
Seeded Rutgers, who got there like this against Georgetown.
2 seconds. Billett. Oh, my goodness.
Everybody screamed. Doesn't get much better. Rutgers wins it 61-60. And in the other Big East quarterfinal, Syracuse just gets past
Rutgers down by 1. Hoyas with nice defense, but Jeff Billett beats the D and nails the game-winning shot at the buzzer. Billett would end up with 18 points, and Rutgers beats the Hoyas on a last-second shot, 61-60. So 6th-ranked UConn is up next for Rutgers. The Huskies took care of Providence Thursday.
#1. It doesn't get any easier, but who would have thought a #12 seed would be in the semifinals of the Big East tournament? Apparently nobody told Rutgers, because the Scarlet Knights' Cinderella ride continues tonight as they take on #1 seed UConn. That's a team that they lost to twice during the regular season. But the fact that the Rutgers is still alive has everybody surprised, even Coach.
I'll admit it, I didn't pack as if I was staying here till Saturday, and now we got a shot to stay here on Saturday. So a few of the stores around the hotel have gotten some extra business from Coach Bannon the last couple days. And the fact that we've kind of gotten our act together and played at a high level in the tournament doesn't totally surprise me, because like I said, when we had some great moments this year, and the guys have remembered that, and they pulled it out for the tournament, which is, you know, it's exciting.
And it doesn't get much more exciting than yesterday's buzzer-beating shot by Jeff Billett to knock off Georgetown and keep them alive for another day.
I tried to penetrate to get closer to the basket, and it ended up working out. I came to a spot where no one was really around, and I was able to get off. It was a good look, and unfortunately enough, the ball went in.
The last 24 hours have been spent trying to get them to come back down to earth and understand that we may have a better team next year or the year after or whatever, and we may not get to this point, that there's a lot of elements that come into play. So while you're here, take full advantage of it and see where it's going to take you. So I think our guys are pretty good like that. They understand as great a win as it was and as much fun as it was, we have UConn staring us in the face, and we've got to get ready for that challenge and that opportunity, which would just be, you know, another feather in our cap.
Once again, the Scarlet Knights are at 500 and may be serious contenders for postseason play, but not everybody's ready to talk about that just yet.
For some reason, every time that comes up, we kind of get jinxed, but you know, so we just prefer taking one game. It's just Connecticut versus Rutgers, and it's, you know, this is the most important game of our season right now.
They're 14-14, trying to improve upon that tonight, but as I said, it's going to be a tough battle tonight with UConn.
Good luck to the Knights.
Right.
Thank you, Jerry. A sunny and pleasant
is 2 wins away from going to the NCAA tournament. And Coach Kevin Bannon, tell me about the opportunity.
Well, the guys have done a phenomenal job of getting ready for this tournament. We were a low seed, but we came here and we did what we had to do. We played loose, we went after it, and I'm just, you know, proud of what we've done. But it's not finished yet. We have a great opportunity tonight with a game against UConn.
Jeff Billett beat the buzzer yesterday against Georgetown. Describe it.
Well, we got the ball in and we tried to make an aggressive play. It was great that we had 4 touches in 9 seconds and we got the defense to spread out a little bit. And then Jeff just deserves all the credit. He made an aggressive move into the defense and got it up there just in the nick of time. He got it up.
Coach, good luck tonight.
Thanks very much.
All right, Rutgers going for the big victory. Back to you, Len.
All right, a lot of happy Rutgers fans. We'll see what happens against Connecticut tonight. Baseball today.
Special.
Emotion just takes over, and then the guys run on the court, and it's just, you know, it's a great high.
As soon as I saw it, like, going through the hoop, I don't remember the next 5 minutes. I just remember watching the guys celebrate. That's all. I don't know what I did and who I did it with.
Rutgers now needs 2 more wins to qualify for the NCAA tournament. It won't be easy, though. Tonight they play Connecticut, the number 6 team in America.
Can you pull this off tonight?
If we keep believing in ourselves, crazier things have happened. That's what March Madness is all about, and, you know, it's just a great thrill for the guys on the team and for myself to, you know, to be in a situation like this.
Rutgers is a considerable underdog tonight, but as Jeff said, this is what March Madness is all about, and it should be interesting here at the Garden tonight. We're live at Madison Square Garden, semifinals of the Big East Tournament. Gary Apple, News 2.
All right, Gary, thank you very much.
Highlights at 11.
Cinderella Rutgers will have a preview in a bit. Played in the Big East Tournament, and 7 of them, the margin has been 3 points or less with 5 minutes left to play. It's been tight. We expect more of the same in the semifinals tonight. Top seed UConn against upstart Rutgers. That's followed by Syracuse and St. John's. Mike DiRico and Len Elmore will be on hand to guide us through the Garden Madness. Gentlemen.
Well, the AT&T Big East Championship has brought us wonderfully close games, upsets, but the top 3 seeds have made it to semifinal Friday night. The only surprise, Rutgers, the 12 seed. Yesterday, they come up with the dramatic buzzer beater to knock off Georgetown. It was Jeff Billett hitting the shot. The question now, is Rutgers just satisfied with a Scarlet Knights semifinal appearance?
Let's not walk away from this without throwing a few knockout punches and seeing where it can take us. We're not going to concede anything to UConn. We want to go to war for 40 minutes, and you just never know. You know, it happens all around the country. And why not let it, you know, happen in the Garden?
Real close to the Rutgers campus, Len Elmore. The place should be electric tonight. Rutgers will have the fan support, but they need a 3rd great game from their guard, Jeff Billett.
Well, Mike, you're a cultured guy, so you know that Jeff Billett's last name means ticket in French. But here in the Garden, he's been synonymous with quality point guard play. And that means the ability to control a basketball game, to control the tempo, to break down defenses, to create opportunities, and to make your teammates better. Tonight, Rutgers is hoping that their Billett is valid for 1 more game.
Well, UConn's been the big ticket in the Big East. They're by far the best team in the conference all throughout the year. Our 2nd game should be fun. It's Syracuse. Now back to the studio.
All right, guys, thank you very much. Lenny expanding our horizons with that information there. Rutgers and UConn coming up immediately following SportsCenter, about 14 minutes and change.
To become the lowest seed ever to get to the Big East semis, but you knew it was going to be tough against the heavy favorite in Connecticut tonight. Rutgers, just from the start, had all kinds of trouble. Jeff Billett, he played a lot of minutes in the first couple of games, and you kind of did a good job against him in the regular season anyway, and the shots were not falling for the guy who beat the Hoyas with his last-second shot there. Called for the foul, held to 3 points. UConn on the shoulders of Rip Hamilton, the player of the year in the conference. Digger, who has not been shooting well, has to dodge the official there for the punch down.
That was a good screen in for the layup because he's not been shooting well from the field, so that counts as an assist. But Rutgers on the other side, take a look. Billett goes 1 for 8. He wasn't Cinderella tonight. His glass slipper fell off at the door.
Now when you shoot 28% for the game, Khalid El Amin with 21. The Huskies one step away from following up their regular season title with the Big East Tournament championship. In the Atlantic.
In the first game of tonight's semifinal doubleheader, the UConn Huskies, they ended Rutgers' Cinderella run. The top-seeded Huskies eliminated the Scarlet Knights tonight 64-50. Jim Calhoun trying to rain on Jeff Billett's parade. Billett the hero last night. Here in the first half, Jeff Greer's jumper makes it 8-7 Rutgers. It would be their last lead of this ball game. Khalid El Amin, he gives the Huskies the 20-15 lead right here with a nice jump shot. It's a 20-15 lead, and Kevin Bannon has his bad feeling. But anyway, we move now to action later in the first half. Good ball movement. Kevin Freeman with the slam. Jim Calhoun says, yep, I like that. I like that. El Amin, he's going to find Richard Hamilton, the Huskies' leading scorer. Nice jumper right there. UConn up by 7. Jeff Billett, he doesn't like what he's seeing either. Second half, El Amin again. He's going to drive and hit the jumper. UConn up by 12. Then it's Richard Hamilton, a guy known for scoring, with the steal. And then he's going to say, oh, what the heck. Excuse me, ref. I gotta go to the hoop here. Ref, get out of the way, will ya? Come on. Nice little drive, ball control, and the jam for the finish. Kevin Bannon says, should have put that ref in a tank top. Then the alley-oop, the finisher, El Amin to Freeman. And one, nice and slow, as it is all it for UConn, the victor, as they move on with the victory. And Kevin Bannon, he was the man who had some comments after the game.
It's a good run for our program. I'm a little disappointed. I think fatigue was definitely a factor. We're normally a pretty good shooting team, and I thought we got some great looks, and the ball just wouldn't go in for us. And I think that was our only chance, really, to make this interesting tonight, was to make some threes. And boy, I thought we had some real good looks in both halves, and they just didn't go down. And I think that wore us out a little bit. I think it hurt our confidence, and we just, it just played on our minds a whole lot. It's like a broken record, but I think these guys gave me everything they had. We got a lot out of the group. I'm very pleased with what they've done, and it's the beginning of something. And we'll never be in this position again where we're this small, where we have less on the bench. It'll never happen again. So to make this little run kind of gives these kids something. I mention everybody but the kids themselves. They deserve this because of what they were able to do for me this year, and I told them that after the game.
Make sure you join us Sunday night at 10:30 and look at this year's 64 NCAA tournament field with our college basketball analyst, Bob Wenzel, right here on Sports Desk. In the ACC...
Topic of the day is basketball.
And with good reason.
Of
Lots
course.
going on, Randy. Big doings in the Big East tonight, folks, with the championship semifinals taking place over at Madison Square Garden. Fran Fraschilla's Red Storm of St. John's, the #2 seed in the tournament, taking on the 3rd seed. Game earlier tonight. The bubble burst for Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Second half, freshman Khalid El Amin cashes in 2 of his game-high 21. UConn goes up 12, and from there they maintain control. Here comes Amin again, this time to Kevin Freeman. Down a hatch along with the Scarlet Knights' hopes. 64-50, UConn was your final. All right.
4-50. Tournaments going on. Hard to believe we'll be down to the Sweet 16 in just 9 days. A special buzz at the Garden. Rutgers and UConn. Semifinals, Big East Tournament. First half, Big East Rookie of the Year, Khalid El Amin with the steal. The cruise to the hoop, Huskies by 7 at halftime. In the second half, Huskies on the run. Richard Hamilton to El Amin. He finished with a game-high 21. UConn won 64-50. Isn't that pretty? Second game, Syracuse and St. John's. Check out Jay.
Started the run by waylaying nationally ranked West Virginia. Then Jeff Billett put a bullet in Georgetown with a last-second shot. The Scarlet Knights had never won a Big East Tournament game. They still have never beaten UConn in a league game, but the top seed was their assignment for the night. Jeff Billett had to come back down to earth after last night's heroics, and did he ever. 1 of 8 from the floor. He scored just 3 points. Charged here on the Huskies. Rutgers was in it early on, But in the second half, it was all UConn, especially Richard Hamilton, the Big East Player of the Year with a 1-on-6, even avoids the referee. And that's it for Rutgers, as Kevin Bannon's team won the first 2 games the school has ever won in the Big East Tournament, but UConn rolls 28-4. They've won all 6 meetings, including 3 this year now by an average of 15 points. Rutgers had just gotten to 500, which they would have needed to qualify for the NIT.
Hey, St. John.
What an exciting game between Syracuse and St. John's.
This has been a terrific tournament. Big East John's now in the earlier semifinal. Cinderella Rutgers facing #1 seed Connecticut. UConn in the white. First half, Khalid El Amin off the turnover gets the layup. El Amin leading all scorers with 21 points. As for yesterday's hero for Rutgers, Jeff Billett, just 1 of 8 from the field. That's the one, the 3-pointer. The Knights stayed close early on, but the Huskies pulling away in the second half. El Amin the alley-oop to Kevin Freeman. The clock strikes midnight for Rutgers. They lose 64-50, so the Big East final tomorrow night at the Garden will be.
Finalists are set. The last one just in. Kevin Bannon's Cinderella run went down the road when Rutgers met up with top-seeded UConn. Khalid El Amin led with 21 points, and here sets up Kevin Freeman perfectly. Connecticut rolled 64-50 to advance to the finals against Syracuse. Folks, the Yankees.
Out to Billett, down to 2. Billett goes line lane, running gun. Good! Rutgers wins it on a jumper by Billett at the buzzer. Holloway across the midcourt line. Gotta let it go. Holds up. Hit it! Oh, that's the buzzer. Lopez for 3. That is a huge basket. Artest for the tie. He hit it! Make it 7 3-point field goals for Donnell Williams.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Metro Hoop Scoop. I'm Mike Quick. A different show for you today on MSG Network. For the first time ever, Kevin Bannon, Tommy Amaker, and Fran Fraschilla together alone. They've been in Big East press conferences before, postseason award shows and things of that nature, but never together on one set. And they'll be here tonight, and we'll talk about everything, just not college basketball, the season that was just. We will talk about cheating. We'll talk about the NBA, AAU influence, recruiting, of course, the bloodline of college basketball. And we will do that when we return on Metro Hoop Scoop with Kevin Bannon, Tommy Amaker, and Fran Fraschilla right after this. Welcome back to the Metro Hoop Scoop, and joining us, as we mentioned earlier, Kevin Bannon, Tommy Amaker, and Fran Fraschilla. And guys, let's get into it by just looking back at the season that was. You guys end up going 14-15, Kevin, but the way you ended the year with the 2 Big East wins in the tournament, that's got to be a great jump start into next season.
Well, it was really important for us. I thought that we had a good year. I thought the kids played hard and gave me everything they had, but I think the run that we made at the end really put the exclamation point on it and gave everybody around Rutgers basketball something to be proud of and some optimism that we needed.
I asked you just before you came out on the court against UConn, how many suits did you bring up here? And that's always the telltale sign. You said you only came up with 1, but your wife had to run you some other suits up here. So you guys weren't even expecting, coming into the Big East tournament, to have the showing you did, were you?
Well, first of all, that was supposed to be between you and I. But, you know, who knows? I mean, I think that we gave a lot of people good runs. We beat 3 top 25 teams this year, so you never know what can happen. And, you know, you don't want to get overconfident. We weren't in a position to do that, but you certainly don't feel like you're going to get into the semifinals with the season we have. But it was great. It was fantastic for everybody involved with Rutgers.
From Ryder to Rutgers, from Duke to Seton Hall, you've been around success, Tommy Amaker, your whole life, from the high school level to a player at Duke, all-time steals leader in Duke history, then with Coach K all those great years. To sit in the seat over there when everyone looks at you, and not a lot of people expected you to do with Seton Hall what you did, get them into the postseason. Was this a gratifying season?
Well, it's extremely gratifying when you think about the hard work that all the players put in.
at the very beginning to get ourselves in a position to win some games and have a winning season, to have a chance to go to postseason. And I was just there to kind of guide it along the way, and we're very proud of the program that we've started and the foundation that we feel we're on track to do some really good things at Seton Hall. And I think the background and the training of being with a great coach like Coach Mike Krzyzewski has prepared me for this juncture. And there are many times when I thought I wanted to go back down to Durham and sit on that, as an assistant, sit on that bench with him, because things can get pretty tough at times.
Yeah, sometimes when you take a look at you on the sidelines, you're just sitting there and it's like, wow, does Tommy really understand what he's in? Sometimes you look like
Probably
you're overwhelmed.
Probably so.
How much different is it? I mean, being an assistant at a major program like Duke and then coming into a major college program and sitting in the hot seat.
It's quite a challenge. It's one that I've been gearing up for a long time, and having a chance to sit by Coach K and sit on the bench down at Duke for 9 years, I think it's really prepared me for this opportunity. And I think sometimes as a young coach, at least for myself, as a first-year coach, Fran and Kevin may want to talk about that, having been head coaches a lot longer, but you know, sometimes you're sitting there and you're trying to learn about yourself as a coach. You know, for my first year, it was something more so not just learning how to coach, but learning about Tommy Amaker, what kind of coach that I'm going to try to become, or who am I going to become as a head coach. And that takes a process and it takes a while, but we've had some good roads here, and now we need to kind of keep moving along.
From two first-year guys to the old man, Fran Fraschilla, second year at St. John's. You guys struggled last year. You come out of the block 7-3 this year. Things are looking good, and then you get whacked here at the Garden by Niagara. It doesn't get any lower than that. But I think from everything I've heard and read and we've spoken, that was the impetus to get this season going, because it was the bus ride to nowhere, I think, that really got this team headed in the right direction.
I think that was probably one of the key points of the season, Mike. I think much like Tommy and I think Kevin have learned this year in the Big East, particularly taking over programs that are on the way back, is that we had to learn how to win. We came close last year and lost some tough games, and yet we're very competitive. And we started off the year knowing that we needed to kind of gel a little bit with some new guys and some veterans. So I think sometimes as you're building a program, you have to go to that, maybe almost hit rock bottom in terms of not being able to go any lower. And to our guys' credit, we learned how to win. We won some close games. We did come together, and it ended up being you know, a fun ride towards the end of the year.
When you pulled back to the hotel that night, I know you cleared the bus of everybody but your assistant coaches and your players. What did you say to them? And I heard it wasn't fiery, which surprised me, but you were pretty low-key?
Well, yeah, you know what, I'm obviously I'm emotional and I coach that way, but there's certain points in time where you can't beat a team when they're really down. I think that's when you have to pick them up, and that was more or less a feel. We had beaten a good Illinois team by 17 in Puerto Rico, so we knew we could be a good team, and it was just a matter of keeping the guys focused and not letting them get down, because that would have been easy just to throw in the towel. And I think there's certain points in time where the players expect you to be one way when you really have to be another way. And I think that was a time where they needed to hear from me that I thought they could be a good team, and that's what happened. And to their credit, they responded. They never quit, and they kept grinding it out, and it worked for them.
Well, the Red Storm finished the year 22-10, and with that loss to Detroit in the NCAA tournament, that marked the end of Felipe Lopez's college career. And I'm amazed to sit here and say Felipe Lopez is now done with college. It seems like only yesterday I was covering him at Rice High School. And Tommy, I want to ask you, because we know Fran's take on Felipe. You've been around NBA guys, you've coached with and against NBA guys, played with NBA guys. Is Felipe Lopez an NBA player?
I certainly think so. I've been very impressed watching him play and coaching against him this season. You know, you talk about a kid who's been through the ropes, so to speak, been through the wars, and I think that's a key thing for him, his experience and the fact that he's been able to make himself into the player that he is right now, and he's probably had some hard falls and some knocks along the way. I think that makes you tougher, and I think he's shown that in many games, especially against the games that we played against him. Boy, he kind of took over in certain stretches, and that's because of some of maybe the knocks and the speed bumps and the potholes that he had to experience to get to this point. And you look at his skills, he has great size for a guard, and can shoot the ball, he can handle, he's very athletic, and he seems to be a player that really loves to play. And I think that's something that all the NBA people really look for, and as a kid really want to be a player, and I think he's shown that.
Late first round, early second, or even closer to that lottery?
Well, I think it depends on what he does in these postseason NBA camps. Right now, he's, from what I've heard and talked to Fran about that, he's done a great job thus far, and I think his stock is steadily on the rise from what people are saying, and I think he brings a lot to the table. It brings the fact that his size, I think, in the backcourt and his ability to guard and defend, and he's very creative with the basketball. He's a player that I think people would like to see play, and I think those are the things that make him, I think, a top NBA prospect.
My man Felipe, the MVP out at the NCAA National Championship, the weekend festivities in San Antonio. Kev, I want to talk about coaching style now. As I mentioned earlier, you guys are three very different philosophies when you step onto that sideline. You got teed up a couple times this year, but when I watch you coach, you sometimes have the ability to laugh at the officials when things aren't going your way. Is that one of your outs, so you don't get maybe that third or fourth tee in the season?
Well, I have a tendency to be a little fiery, but I think you have to enjoy it out there, and you have to have a cool head, particularly at this level. There's a lot of egos involved, and people are very sensitive. So, I think you just have to know your kids, know the officials, and you have to be able to adjust. I mean, I've been a head coach for 16 years now, so I better learn as I go along, or I'm not going to get any better. 16
years a head coach in basketball. But first year in the Big East, do you feel that because you guys are the new guys that maybe calls don't go your way like other coaches in the conference?
I didn't really feel that way. I thought the guys did a great job, and I really mean that sincerely. I thought about it going into the league, but I think once we started playing in the games, I think guys have good nights, bad nights, but I never really felt like I wasn't getting a fair shake because I was a new kid on the block.
When you're coaching against St. John's, can he distract you at the other end? I mean, as animated as you are, do you ever, out of the corner of your eye, see this wild man jumping up and down, spinning around, falling down a couple times? Does he distract you?
I have my own problems. No.
I don't even notice the other guy. I don't know if you, I don't.
Not that much.
I really don't. Unless I know personally. I don't know. I know I look at myself on film and I look like an idiot sometimes, but I never am able to. I never think about coaching against Tommy Amaker, or Jim Boeheim, or Kevin Bannon. It's what's going out on the court. So. But when I watch those films of me, sometimes I'm kind of amazed. But
do you ever say to yourself, man, you know what? This night I'm going to control it. First bad call, boom. It's with you, it's not even a bad call. It could be just taking the jacket off right away.
You know what's interesting? When we were playing Georgetown early in January, and we had just lost to Seton Hall at home. Bill Raftery caught me, before the game, and I said, "What do you think, Raf?" And he said, "You've got a good team. You're just a little bit too emotional right now." And it might not look like I calmed down a little bit, but I kind of needed to take a step back and let my team play a little bit. We were at a point where I felt like I was almost coaching every play, and you can't coach that way. And Raf's advice was, well taken. I kind of stayed in the background a little bit more than I do, and the kids seemed to respond to it and play a little bit better.
We're just getting started. A lot more to do when we return on Metro Hoop Scoop.
Tonight.
One of the things about if you have a successful year, you get noticed, and that's what happened with you guys right away. About 3 weeks ago, Tommy, I'm thinking, well, I'm going to have to call Kevin and Fran and say, we can't do this show. Tommy's going to be off at Michigan. Let's play something here. Sue Regan, who was the athletic director at Seton Hall at the time of whenever Michigan was coming after you and stuff, she's the basketball coach. Tommy Amaker is the athletic director. You've just signed Sue to a 7-year contract. And Michigan says to Tommy, I'd like to speak to Sue Regan. Do you let her out of that and say, you know what, go ahead and speak to him?
Well, I think when you in a position like that, I think you have a relationship first of all, and I think anyone that's ever been in a relationship, whether it's with another person or a spouse or an organization that you're working with, I think you always want to make sure that the people that work in your organization or that you have a relationship with feel like you have their best interests at heart. And I think that's a very important element to start with, and not so much of what a contract states or how many years you say you're there, but if there are certain situations for an individual that may come around, that may never be there again, or may have an opportunity to listen or entertain or to talk about or talk with. I think it's important that you establish that type of relationship, and that's something that happened for me at Seton Hall, and I'm very grateful to have that opportunity, to have an opportunity to listen to someone that was interested. I was very flattered to be in that position, and quite honestly, I didn't think that would ever happen, let alone a number of years down the road, let alone my first year. But timing is a crazy thing in this world, and certainly in college basketball.
How close did you get? Now, I know you didn't even fly out there to speak with them, correct?
Correct.
How heartfelt, how close did you get to say, you know what, maybe I really want to take a look at this seriously?
Well, I think when I thought about it for myself personally, and my wife and I, it's, you know, being 32 and the first year as a head coach and just completed a season, and you're talking about being worn out and tired, and you still have recruiting to do, and we felt like we started something that we're trying to continue on with our program, and to have something like this kind of evolve or develop somewhat, it was just mind-boggling for me. And I think looking back on it with maybe a clearer head or clearer mind, that, you know, maybe there were different things that I would maybe do differently. But I think when that's posed to you or presented to you in the fashion that it was, Mike, you're talking about a program that's considered, you know, one of the top athletic programs in the country, and showed some interest on my part that it was very difficult. It was a very tough time for me to kind of sort through a lot of things that I was feeling, and because I think you're fatigued and you're tired, and so I wanted to kind of take a step back from it and evaluate it, and I was fortunate that the people at Seton Hall had patience and allowed me to do that.
Kev, you wish he went?
Do I wish he went?
You wish he took the Michigan job?
I was all set. You know, you didn't get my letters, my flowers. No. You know what? It's a personal thing, and I think that Tommy handled it very, very well. And it's very easy for people to look into a situation and think that, you know, they would do things better. But it doesn't matter what we're paid or what we do for a living. We're people, and it's a very difficult thing when something like that presents itself. You know, you're never going to handle it exactly the way you want to handle it. But I think the important thing is that he has a great relationship with the people at Seton Hall, and it's over with. You know, that's the most important thing.
Arizona State, I know, got Ed Minetta's blessing to speak with you recently. What do contracts mean now? I mean, Fran Fraschilla has a 4 or 5 year contract. Is it as much as, you know what, a contract, boom, forget about it?
Yeah, interesting, Mike. I think everybody's contract's different. So, excuse me, while I wouldn't share with you what exactly my contract says, I think it's important to go about things professionally. In my particular case, it was interest on their part, and they asked Ed for permission and asked if they wanted to talk to me. And after brief conversations, it was apparent that I wasn't interested. So I think, you know, I think what it is, it's flattering in some ways, because I know in my case, I'm new to this game too in a lot of ways, only having been a head coach for 6 years. And, you know, you kind of, this wouldn't happen if you're not having some success, or you don't have the kind of reputation that Tommy has coming in from Duke. So I think what's important as you weigh everything out, what's important to your family, I think that's crucial, what's important to your career, what's important to the school you work for, and then I think, you know, you kind of weigh things, you know, in those terms. And I think sometimes people, you don't know what in everybody's contracts, what's a broken contract and what's not a broken contract. So I think the important thing is, I like St. John's, I like what we're trying to do here, and it is flattering when people want to know, you know, well, what are they doing over there? Why are they doing, you know, why are they gotten off to a good start? So, you know, it's a nature of March, and it's the nature of this business, and that's just the way it goes. It's going to happen every March for as long as we're all in coaching.
I think in March there are so many rumors that fly around in March. This guy going here, that guy going there. If you're a high school kid, great basketball talent right now, do you verbally commit, or do you sign that letter of intent back in November? What do you do?
Well, I think it's a tough decision. I can't. Everybody's different. Every coaching situation is different. You have to know that situation and how long the coach has been there, and you have to make an educated guess the best you can. I can't say whether I would or not.
When you came out of high school in Virginia and you went to Duke, did you sign or did you verbal first?
I signed. I mean, it was all at the same time. I verbal and signed during the early signing period. I think it's, as Kevin just mentioned, I think it's a personal decision and something that you should weigh with the support people and your family and your coaches that you deal with, and also the feeling that you have about where you're going to go to college. So many times that when you sign, you technically are signing with the university, not necessarily with the coach. And that's the way that it's played out, and it's the way it's supposed to happen. But we all know that kids are going a lot of times they're going to various schools because of the basketball program, the coach, and the school. And I think it's unfortunate some things kind of get removed from the equation, and the kids are sometimes left holding the bag or the situation there and wondering, am I at the right place because this XYZ coach may be leaving now. But I think it has to do with why a kid may be going to that particular school. Does he like the school more so as much as the basketball program, as a coach, and everything else? And I think it's a package of things, and I guess that's a long-winded way of saying I signed when I verbal.
Wait, the old man at 32.
Did Bobby Hurley sign early?
Yes.
He did?
Yes.
Okay, because I had heard that and there was always a story that Bobby waited till late, but I guess that's not true.
No, not to my knowledge.
We had a situation at Providence when I was with Rick Barnes where we verbally committed Dickie Simpkins, a young man who's now with the Chicago Bulls, and Dickie waited till the springtime because of all the rumors that Rick might not be there. He wound up coaching Dickie for 4 years, but at the time, Rick was quote unquote a hot item on the coaching market, that Dickie waited till the spring, and it turned out to be a good decision for everybody.
Well, and I think, and we all know what a smart kid Elton Brand is, and I know he only verbally committed.
Mm-hmm.
And you think that Coach K is going to be at Duke forever, and I know there have been some rumors about the Detroit Pistons and that whole thing, but here's a kid going to a school whose coach really has never mentioned about jumping, and he says, you know what? I'm going to beat the system. I'm not going to let the system beat me. Should a coach, let's say you leave, Tommy, Kevin, you guys leave. You have a kid coming in, and it happened to you at Manhattan with Chudney Gray. You're not there. That kid chose the Jaspers because of you.
Yeah.
They let him out. You take him to St. John's. Should it just be a rule now? Coach leaves, that kid gets to go. He's open market again?
See, I believe that. Now, I know that a lot of people would not agree with that, but I have a 6-year-old son who, if he turned out to be a pretty good player, I'm not sure. I think I would do what Elton Brand did. I do believe that, because I think in most cases the young man picks the school because of not necessarily the head coach, just the head coach, but the personality of the head coach, the assistant coaches, the people that he's gotten to know through the recruiting process, I think become very important in the decision. And I do think that that should be changed. And I know Dick Vitale mentioned it this week, and a lot of people have mentioned it, and I don't think it's a bad idea. I think you'd have chaos at times, but I still think it would probably be in the best interest of the student-athlete.
No question. I mean, right now, a young man from the Bronx is going through it. Von Hunter, Tommy Pender's leaving Texas, which brings us up to recruiting. You guys, let's say, for example, we'll just throw it out there for the sake of it. I'm a 6'8" kid from Elizabeth, New Jersey. Sell me on your school. Why do I want to go to St. John's?
Well, I think academic and athletic tradition, we're the 4th winningest program of all time, New York, Madison Square Garden, and a whole bunch of things. But I think the great basketball tradition that St. John's has had for many years, and the opportunity to play in the media capital of the country, and the fact that you get a chance to play on, maybe the world's greatest arena.
That's your C sales pitch right there, right? That's not your A stuff.
I'm playing it close to the vest here, Mike.
All right, Tommy, as it's like a political election year, equal time. What do you sell to Seton Hall to a prospective recruit?
Well, I think there are a lot of things when you look at, you're talking about the Big East Conference. I mean, you're playing one of the best conferences. You're talking about exposure. You're talking about this area, as Fran mentioned, with the media capital in New Jersey and also in the New York metropolitan area. But I think one of the most important things for the kids to realize is that if it's the best situation for that kid, I think it more so than who's been there before or who's coached there or whatever all the things that people talk about in the past, or those things are very good. I think the nuts and bolts of the situation, is it the best environment for this particular kid at this time? And I think those are the things when you really try to make a decision of that magnitude need to be answered.
Right now, 3 young guns recruiting. You got your Stavs out there working the beat. It can get very competitive right now. Do you find that between you 3 schools it's more competitive from what you've heard from people and some of the older guys in the office and stuff like that, that St. John's, Rutgers, Seton Hall is more competitive recruiting now than it's ever been?
Well, I think the environment is just that way today. It's just a very competitive environment. We're getting paid well. Our assistants are getting paid well. It's the most prosperous time probably in college basketball. So we're going to go at it, but we'll go at it in a very positive way. And I think we all have a lot to sell Plus, you gave these guys a chance to sell their school, and
go right
I didn't
ahead.
say that Rutgers is one of the oldest and finest public institutions. I have it written down my hand here in America, and the greatest home court advantage in the Big East. Okay, I'm done. All right, now let's go back to
30 seconds for rebuttal.
It is true. I'll tell you. And I think one of the big things at your school, if that football program ever gets winning, and I know you talk about this a lot. You said, "Oh, the dream is one day to coach maybe at a school with."
I said that at Manhattan.
At Manhattan,
yeah,
okay.
No, it's been thrown back at me.
But I think that football, if football gets kicking there, I think that's only going to help you guys when you bring in a recruit and he walks out there. There's 43,000 people going nuts on a football Saturday.
Well, I think the point I was going to make before I kidded around is just that we're all different people and we're all different institutions. And as Tommy said, they just have to pick what's right for them. But certainly at Rutgers, what makes us different is the fact that we're removed a little bit from the area, and we do have football, and it's a little bit of a bigger university. And, you know, it is. To me, it's a big plus.
More recruiting talk after this timeout on Metro Hoop Scoop.
Down to 2, Billick goes line lane, running gun, good! Rutgers wins it on a jumper by Billick at the buzzer!
Holloway across the midcourt line. Gotta let it go. Pulls up. Hit it! Oh, right at the buzzer!
Lopez for 3. That is a huge basket. Artest for the tie! He hit it! Make it 7 3-point field goals for Dale Williams.
Right now, one of your assistant coaches, and from the last time I looked, I think he's still involved, speaking with Niagara. Let's say he gets that job, and you just recently lost Tim O'Toole to Fairfield. Would you guys take a high school coach to get a player? A guy that can coach, he's a legitimate high school coach that has a player. Would you take that coach?
In most cases, the only way I would do it is if it was a friend, somebody that I have a very long time relationship with. It's just the way I try to put my staff together, people that I know pretty well and know a long time. And you know, I think you have to look at when that person leaves, what piece of the puzzle is now missing. And I think, you know, if you can address that piece by doing that, you know, you go ahead and do it. But I mean, that in my own situation, I'd have to have a long time relationship with somebody. That's just me personally to hire them.
Tommy?
I don't think, for me personally, having been just a first-year head coach and had an opportunity to put together the first staff, the initial staff, and now, as you mentioned, lost our assistant coach, Tim O'Toole, got the Fairfield job and did a great job for us at Seton Hall, and now we have an opening, and we're going to have to fill that somehow, whether we move guys around internally already or do we go outside. I think it's important that you hire people that you really need to complement you and your staff. And I would never try to get into a situation of hiring someone to deliver someone else in terms of a high school player. I think that's so short-sighted and short-term. And when you talk about your staff, that's maybe one of the most important things as a head coach that you can do is to put together your coaching staff.
I think the biggest thing, and both Kevin and Tommy addressed it, having a coaching staff entails a lot of loyalty because of the competitiveness and the pressure that we're all under. So the loyalty factor is important. I think if you know somebody, and having grown up in the area, there are a couple of coaching friends of mine that I know pretty well, that, you know, I would consider somebody if I felt they could complement the rest of the staff. It's funny. In fact, there's a couple guys that are out of coaching at the moment that I think are a couple of the finest coaches, you know, in any level in the country that I've considered hiring in the past because of how good a basketball coach they are. I think the whole key is how they complement the rest of your staff and how they'll get along with your players and how they're going to make your program better over not the short term but also the long term.
You know, you guys know that I talk to a lot of high school coaches, a lot of high school players in the area. Coaches this year have said that more than ever before, there's a lot of bad-mouthing going on from one school to the other, saying, you don't want to go there, they do this, they do that. Is bad-mouthing the way to go when you're trying to recruit a kid, you're selling your school to a kid, and you're bad-mouthing other people, other people's programs?
I think it's, I think it's counterproductive. I really do. I think that in most cases, I don't think it works. I think that, and these guys probably say the same thing to recruits. If someone else is talking negatively about, your school, then they probably don't have as much to sell on their end. So I think that, especially you know, if you're dealing with kids that, you know, can be pretty sharp kids, that they see through that. And especially in this area that, you know, we're going to be very, very competitive, I think, over the next few years. But I think there's generally a real mutual respect among our programs. And I think it is, I think it is, in a long term, counterproductive, particularly in an area like New York where everybody talks.
If you find out one of your guys is bad-mouthing another program, because it's not the head coaches, it's usually the assistant coaches, do you go in and say, hey, look, let's knock that off? I mean, was that a practice at Duke where you bad-mouth other people, or you find out one of your guys is doing it? Do you
just say that, do it.
No.
Yeah, like, it's all right, it's all right.
They just selected it, dude.
Yeah, I know. You just get whoever you want.
They just selected.
Do you find out and just put an end to it right there?
No, that's something that, as far as I know, having been there for a long time down at Duke, and certainly want to carry a lot of the things that I learned there to our job here at Seton Hall, is that you never get into that as far as negative recruiting or bad-mouthing other people. We never are interested in trying to tear someone down to make ourselves look good. As Fran mentioned, and you just, you know, you want to sell and talk about what you have, and if you're doing that in terms of I don't know anybody else's program. I mean, you know, I know the programs that I've worked for and that I've been involved in, and certainly the Seton Hall program. And you know, you have great coaches in this area and other places, and you respect people. And we've all been in this business for a while. That you know, you're all going to make our pitch, and may the best man win in terms of getting a high school player.
Great player. Kid wants to go to your school, and he's really close between Rutgers and another school, and he starts asking around, why should I go to your school? Is that at a point we can say, well, our style is conducive to what you do? I mean, is there ways to get around bad-mouthing somebody by pumping your program?
Well, I think that's the only way to do it. You just accentuate the positives of yourself, your staff, and your program, your school. And if that's not going to get you the kid, then you're not going to get him. I mean, that's what it comes down to, basically.
You know, recently during the Big East Tournament, and I think it's a crazy rule, one of your assistant coaches, Danny Hurley, was talking to a big kid, a junior, out of high school. He's not playing high school ball right now. He got whacked for that. I think it's a stupid violation, only that because he coached the kid the year before in high school. I think out of that, one of the bigger problems is an AAU coach had tickets and that kid is sitting right behind your bench. How does he end up behind your bench when during the Big East Tournament tickets for kids it's off limits? It's not a spot you're supposed to be.
Well, the first thing with Danny, I mean, when you say he got whacked, actually he got whacked in the papers, but he didn't get whacked by the NCAA or by the school. It's a very minor thing. We self-report it and you go on. I mean, you basically you reprimand yourselves, and that's the way the process in the NCAAs works. But I mean, as far as the ticket things goes, the same thing. I mean, the tickets were never left for the young man. They were left for someone else, and how he ended up there still remains to be seen.
It's the age-old thing, and you and I have a history about this next thing I'm going to ask. AAU basketball, is it killing the high school game? Is it killing the college game? Is it hurting the way you guys now have to recruit, because it's no longer that high school coach, in many cases, is no longer your point man?
Well, I'd like to throw this out. I don't think it's. I don't think you can ever go across the board and say that, you know, the AAUs are killing. I mean, it's just like anything else. Just like with college basketball, with commentators, with anything else, you're going to have some bad apples in the industry that you deal with. And I think when you talk about AAUs, you talk about anything that has a vast variety of different people, different programs, and I think you're going to have a very few people at times that, and we as a society tend to focus on the people that don't do it the right way and get the headlines. And I think there's so many good people in AAU, and I was a player, and I'm sure Fran and Kevin have been involved and played or whatever, that over the years have some terrific people that have been involved in the AAU programs. And I know I wouldn't have gone to Duke or had a chance to play at a certain level in high school and college if I didn't play AAU basketball. So I had a very positive experience.
When you were recruited out of high school, obviously a major recruit, did they deal with your AAU coach more than your high school coach, or vice versa?
Probably dealt more with my high school coach, but clearly my AAU coach was involved in it and involved in the process in terms of guiding me and wanting to, for me it was another opinion. someone else that I could bounce an idea off of, or bounce a school off of, or coach off of, get a different thought. And I think the college coaches, as we know now, we kind of cover all the bases, and that was clearly the case back then.
It is amazing when I'll be at a high school game and I see you guys, the amount of people that you have to know to talk to go after that blue chip. I mean, you have to know the name of his dog, who walks his dog, the whole bit.
I've walked the dog a few times. That's a violation.
I heard you also got yourself a fake tattoo to go after one kid earlier this year. Big biceps. Obviously, the kid you're going after has much bigger biceps than.
I don't know.
Do you have to take a step back and say, oh my God, you know, this is getting out of control, the number of people I have to talk to just to get to this kid?
I come from a large family, and some of my brothers are involved in sales. It's no different. Their notebook's full of who the key person is to make the sale. Here's the people that I have to deal with. You know, I know it's a product and not a human being, but I mean, we're ultimately trying to sell our schools to people, and we've got to do the best job we can within the parameters of the rules.
When do you talk to the high school coach? Is that the first person, when you go after a certain kid, is that the first person you have a contact with?
Mike, it all depends on the situation, obviously. What I think, you know, before AAU basketball, it was called summer basketball, and you've got some programs in our area that have had great summer programs through the years. I think it really varies kid to kid. I think the one thing that the coaches are trying to do is to at least get the high school coach back in the picture. I think, as Tommy said, he had it got, you know, real good advice, and he played for a great high school coach, by the way, but also utilized his summer league AAU coach to be involved in helping his decision-making process. But I think what's happened is we've all put such an emphasis on the summertime, which is an important part of a player's development, that we sometimes bypass the high school coach. And I do think the high school coach needs to be a part of the equation, maybe as much as they were in the past. And but at the same time, as Kevin said, it's sales, and you got to get to know everybody.
I remember a couple of years ago, St. Anthony had just beaten Patterson Catholic in the Tournament of Champions in the Parochial North quarterfinals, and I found myself after the game obviously wanting to talk to Tim Thomas, and I had to go onto the bus to get a quote from him, and I got halfway on the bus and I said to myself, what am I doing here? This kid is a 17, 18, 19-year-old senior in high school, and I'm chasing him down. Has it gotten to the point where the kids, have you noticed, have changed a lot in recent years, where I'm the big-time guy, let him chase me?
I don't know if we're going to control this, but I think one of the problems is that these kids at such a young age are in so many events, they travel so much, they're exposed to so many media things that go on in their lives, that they do become like megastars way too early in life. I don't think it's good for them. I don't think it's good for our business either, but I don't know how we're going to control it.
Are guys like me, am I part of the problem, where we, you know, every week we're doing a couple shows saying this kid's great, that kid's great, hey, they're the #1 team in our poll? Are we part of the problem?
I think, with all due respect to you, and I know how important the high school scene is to you, and you obviously you care a great deal about it, Mike. I do think that the media, it's almost like a cycle, and I've talked to some of the the local high school writers about this. They build the kids up at an early age, and in some cases it does get out of control, and it does become a vicious cycle, because now you've got alumni telling you to recruit these kids. In many cases they wind up getting maybe overrated as opposed to where their real abilities lie, and they get big-headed to the point where you now have to worry about trying to coach somebody who might be feeling like they should be treated like an NBA player.
Do you feel, obviously, and we can't mention his name, but I think everybody who's watching this show understands that there's a kid out there that you two guys are recruiting. That's going to make the alumni happy if you can get him. And let's say he turns out to be a bust, which I think we all know isn't going to happen. But for 1 year, your alumni back off and say, Tommy, Fran, Kevin, you did a great job. So in turn, can we help ease, like if you're coming into a tough year where people are talking, you know what, Bannon's in trouble, Amaker, Fraschilla, they're in trouble, and we get this kid, can it help, can it save a job?
Well, I think in the past you've seen many programs or coaches maybe sign a big-time high school prospect, and as I think it's looked very good. I think ultimately people are going to be judged, and we're all going to be judged on how we do on the court, not so much how we recruit. I think recruiting is a product of what we do on the court, but I think ultimately it's going to be judged on how we conduct ourselves and run our programs and how many games we're going to win. And I think that's the ultimate thing, but it wouldn't hurt to be able to sign some hotshot prospects.
Is there enough high school talent left in the tri-state area for all three schools? You'll find out when we return on Metro Hoop Scoop. I know you guys obviously are friendly with guys that coach in the NBA. And sell your profession here. Is it easier to be an NBA coach, or is it easier to be a college coach? Kev?
I don't know. I've never lived that life. I mean, but I got to think it's easier to be an NBA coach myself. I mean, there's so many people that we have to answer to, and so many different hats that we have to wear, that you know, that's why you see a lot of guys leaving our profession going to the NBA instead of vice versa.
Tommy, I mean, you've been around it a long time. I just think, looking at it from the outside, the biggest part of your job is recruiting. Everyone knows you can X and O, but if you can't recruit, Jeff Van Gundy doesn't have to recruit. Tommy Amaker has to recruit, Fran, Kevin, and if you don't, you're done. So does that make it that much more difficult?
Well, I think there are a lot of trade-offs. I think when you start comparing different situations and different jobs in terms of college and in the NBA, I think you have, when you talk about not having to recruit for a college coach, but I mean, there are a lot of things on that level that you have to deal with that we as college coaches don't have to deal with. And you're talking about having your players making unbelievable amounts of money and trying to maybe how to motivate and create different things, or for people who are multimillionaires. I think it's just a different level, obviously, but there are trade-offs when it comes to it. And I think it's what are you built to do? I think it's, I was just happened to be in Detroit for an all-star game and had a chance to visit with the Pistons and their staff. And you know, it's a tough life that they're leading too, and it's not a very stable profession. And we think ours is kind of unstable, but theirs is probably even more so.
I think one of the things that you guys have to deal with now is that major recruit who you spend so much time going after. Nobody may get him because he may jump right to the NBA right away, or do you want to spend a lot of time recruiting a kid that you're going to have for 1 or 2 years? Now, I'll throw out my idea, how I think, and it might be so simple that it's stupid, but who's telling these kids in high school that they're NBA property, that there will be a lottery pick? To me, it's simple. If I went up to any one of you guys during the summer and said, Tommy, tell me about Elton Brand, Kevin, tell me about Ron Artest, Fran, tell me about Earl Johnson, and they're in high school, you can't say a thing. If I go up to Ernie Grunfeld, he can give me a valuation on how those guys could play at the next level. Just make it so no NBA guys can go to these things. I mean, is that too simple? Because if they're not saying it, if this kid Kobe Bryant or Tracy McGrady, if they're not hearing that they're a lottery pick, then maybe they go to college, make the college game even better. Is it too simple?
Well, I think the other factor that you didn't mention is the agents. I don't know if it's the NBA people. I'm not naive enough to think that there aren't NBA teams that want some of these kids to come out, and that's fine, because we really don't have a working relationship with the NBA from the standpoint of the NCAA. But that's fine. We've coexisted for many years, and obviously a lot of our great players will move on to that level. But I find the interesting thing now is the agents and they do this with college kids too. It's not just the high school guys, but they'll get into somebody's ear and say, hey, I've talked to these teams, and you're going to be definitely a top 15 pick. And they'll do that to, you know, develop a relationship with a college or a high school prospect, so that they maybe inflate that young man's head with delusions of grandeur that may not be there. Now, obviously, there are some terrific high school players that can make the jump, and they've already made the jump, but there's a whole bunch out there, you know, that probably could get very easily fooled because somebody's in their head, and I think that's the dangerous part.
Was it a bad thing for you guys as coaches, for the college basketball fan, that Kevin Garnett was as successful as he was so quickly in the NBA?
Well, personally, I look at it maybe a little bit differently. I kind of think that no one says anything about a tennis player turning pro at 14, 15, 16 years old, or a golfer or a baseball player that's drafted out of high school, and it's such a great thing. I think, again, it's an individual decision, it's an individual choice. I think it's only very few will be placed in that position, but it seems to be that if you're a basketball player or maybe even a football player, it's such a negative thing to think about being a professional at that age. And I don't think any one of us even think about a tennis player. And the last great tennis player that held a college degree was Arthur Ashe, and that's a mind-boggling statement, but no one seems to have a problem with whether it's Jennifer Capriati or whether it's Martina Hingis, or they're pros that before they're even able to drive a car.
See, I think if a player is truly good enough to make that jump, then I do think it's a no-brainer. And again, I go back to my 6-year-old. If he was in that position where he could leave after a year or two and go to the NBA and make the money that these guys are making, I totally agree with Tommy, because I do think, you know, this is America and it's a land of opportunity, and we're all trying to, you know, do well for ourselves. I think the problem is now that you know, if an NBA general manager or enough people could say, hey, this guy's going to be in the top 5 picks in a draft, and enough intelligent people are giving someone their worth, you know, I think that's great. But sometimes I think that there are people out there putting things in guys' heads that maybe aren't as realistic as they could be. And we've had some kids in the Big East the last couple of years that I think their coaches will tell you left school too early, right, because agents got into their heads and said, you're going to be a first-round pick. And in many cases, they wound up either not being a first-round pick or a second-round pick or not getting drafted. So
you're saying then the problem is that the people in the NBA are talking to these agents then are getting to these kids and saying, you know, you're a top 15. If the NBA guys don't even talk to the agents, can't they police themselves so no kid in high school? And believe me, if I had the talent coming out of high school, I would jump to it in a second. Probably only last a year in the league, but I would make the jump. But if nobody talks to the kids, to the agents, wouldn't that get more marquee players back into the college game like 7, 8 years ago?
Somebody's going to talk to the players, because when they play at the level they're playing right now, whether it's going to be their AAU coach or some advisor around them, or even a parent for that matter, is going to be telling these guys that they can make that jump. They're not realistic in their evaluations when we try to recruit them. So how realistic are they going to be, you know, when they say, well, you can or you can't play in the NBA? They're going to say you can play, and in most cases you can if you're borderline.
But if a kid's AAU coach was telling him, and it wasn't an NBA type official telling him, don't you think he'd think twice about making the jump to the league if he didn't have anything, not in writing, but in stone, so to speak, that, yeah, this kid's got the goods to be a top 10 pick, or it's just the nature of the beast, it's just going to continue to happen?
I think it's just like the recruiting process. A lot of young men that we recruit have a very solid, stable support system around them and are able to make an intelligent decision on where to go to school or what part of the country that they want to play in, what league they want to play in, style of play. I think it's the same thing with regard to this question. Depends on the people around you and what kind of advice they're giving you.
I think one of the things in this area we see all the time, the comparisons between the Big East and the Atlantic 10. Both conferences get 5 people to the tournament. Rhode Island makes the great run. Coincidentally, on a Big East coach's talent, Al Skinner, who's now at Boston College, and Herrick gets a lot of that credit. But did the Big East, because all year in the media, oh, the Big East is down, the Big East is down. You had the great tournament here. Did the Big East in coaches' eyes come back to, I don't know if it'll ever come back to where it was in the mid-'80s, but did it make a big jump?
I think it did. I remember early in the year Kevin's great win at Temple, and Temple's got a very good team. And I looked at our league this year, and these guys can answer this as well as I can. I didn't think there was a bad team in the league. And I mean, from 1 to 13, I think Connecticut seemed to be clearly the best. But after Connecticut and Syracuse obviously had a good year, but there was so much parity in the league, Mike, that I think there's some leagues around the country that have some teams at the bottom of their leagues that are not very good. And if you got 2, 3, or 4 of them, that's 6 or 8 wins. And in our league this year, I think it was unbelievable. I mean, I can't for the life of me think of a team that we went into saying, you know, these guys just aren't very good, because there was so much parity.
Well, I think all you have to do is look at Georgetown as the 13th seed in the Big East. I mean, no one ever thought that would have happened. Did you put a number coming into this season on how many wins you thought your team could get?
We never did. It was something that was asked ever since the first day from the press conference, that what was the goal, the number of wins that we were going to strive for. And we never did that because I was afraid to throw something out and maybe have it too low or too high. And I just wanted us to have an opportunity to try to be one of the hardest working teams in our league. And I thought if we did that, then maybe we would get enough wins that we'd all be satisfied.
When you go out of conference, be either the A10, the MAC, anybody, do you feel that you have to coach differently when you go out of conference, and do those games become more important because you're holding the Big East banner, not only the Rutgers emblem across your chest?
Yeah, I think, you know, more than anywhere else I've ever coached, I think you really have a tremendous amount of pride in your league and where you're going out there. Maybe it's because you're on TV or you're so much in the media, but I think you do think about that in the back of your mind. And you want to represent well. You want your league ranking to stay high, and you certainly want to represent the league in a positive manner.
When you look at the Iona situation, a situation in the MAC has become a breeding ground for great coaches to move on. Tim Welsh now goes up to Providence. A great recruiter, bringing one of his assistants, Steve DeMeo, with him. Does that worry you guys now that there's another young gun, so to speak, right? And Providence is in our backyard. Does that worry you that, man, and they recruit New York, Providence does. So does that, boy, another guy we have to fight, or it doesn't matter?
I think everybody's good. Everybody's good. I think that's a great point. I mean,
are there enough players?
Oh, I think there are. I mean, everybody's got their, as Kevin said, everybody's got their own styles and different things to sell, and each of us in our own way have great things to sell about our institutions, and as does Providence, and I coach there as an assistant, so I know. No, I think, you know, everybody is good, and if a coach like Pete Gillen leaves the league, it's ridiculous to think that, you know, John Marinato's not going to go out and get another top coach, and Tim is, I think, in the same situation. Kevin's got a little more experience than some of us, having started earlier. But I do think that, you know, each of us in our own way brings something to the table. And the great thing about the league is every night you're not only playing against great players, but you got to deal with great coaches too.
One of the things I think the MAC, and I'm a guy that I mean, that's why I do high school. I love the locality of the MAC, and there's a lot of guys that I covered, and that's why I always go. When you guys play here at the Garden, I feel like it's alumni week when I step onto the floor and talk to some of your guys. You take that Iona team from this year, put them in the Big East, just this season. Where does that team finish?
Well, with all due respects, and they beat our butts at Rutgers. I think they finish at the bottom of the league. With all the respect I have for them, I mean, our league was tough, and I think they were a special team, and you know, they would have had their share of some wins. But I don't think that they were a Big East team night in and night out. That would have paid its toll when you're playing those kinds of teams night in and night out. You're not going to be able to get on the kind of roll that they got on. And again, it's with all due respects. I know tons of their kids and their coaches, and that is not meant to be disrespectful. I'm just being honest with you.
When you look back, as we wrap this up, the biggest thing you would change during this past season would be what? If you could change one thing.
I think, you know, I probably was kind of hard-headed in terms of shoving man-to-man defense down our team's throat early in the year. It was a complete philosophical change for them. And I was, you know, a little stubborn in the sense that I thought we could go from one extreme to the other. And we probably should have just got there a little more gradually, which we did. It ended up happening. But I think early in the year it hurt us a little bit.
Tommy?
Wow. I don't like to rack my brain and second guess and lose a lot of sleep like that.
You didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. Probably did everything wrong. I just really think in terms of putting so much pressure on an internal basis, in terms of taking it with you maybe a little bit longer, in terms of a loss. I wish I could, if I could go back and change one thing about being able to shake it off and move on to the next game a little bit quicker, a little bit better. I think I could have helped our team a little bit better by doing that.
Fran?
Tommy makes a good point. I'm pretty emotional, and I think sometimes it can get you into trouble. There's not a lot I change about our season from the standpoint of our kids, because I think we came close to reaching our potential. But I do think, as you know, as a guy that's you know, is emotional, I think sometimes just stepping back a little bit and being a little bit more clearer thinking helps, you know, because I think one of the reasons our team got to be a pretty good team was because of the energy I had in getting them to, to grind it out and push forward. But at the same time, I think, you got to take a step back and kind of look at the big picture. It's hard to do game to game because, the minute one game ends, your mind is on the next game. And although one night this year after a game, we had about 6 days off, and I went home the next day and did not even go near the office because I wanted to make sure I stayed home with my 2 boys.
And probably the best day you had all year.
One of the best days of the season.
I won't even ask you guys to put a number of wins on next year because the recruiting thing isn't done yet. We won't date ourselves, but should we just hand Calhoun and the Huskies the Big East Tournament championship next year? I mean, they look loaded.
I think they're, as Fran mentioned, have to be considered maybe the class of the league at this point, especially what they were able to achieve this season and what they have returning. And you talk about Coach Calhoun being a Coach of the Year. They have the Player of the Year returning freshman. I mean, it all seems to be there in terms of everyone back, and they get my vote for being a top team in the league.
Well, guys, I appreciate it. I know it's called a dead period. That's the only reason we were able to get these 3 together. Now it gets hard. I mean, the off season is the hard part. The X's and O's, that's the fun part for what you guys do. Fran Fraschilla, Tommy Amaker, and Kevin Bannon, guys, thanks a lot. Good luck in the off season, and we'll see you here at the Garden next year.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, guys, that's it for the Metro Hoop Scoop. Thanks for watching, and if these guys are all back next year, you never know in college basketball, maybe we'll do it again. Take it easy, everybody.
That's right. I tell you, it has been a hotly debated issue between college administrators and coaches for a long time. Should student athletes be allowed to have a part-time job? This week, the NCAA ruled in favor of students in Division I schools, allowing them to work and play. Here's more. Proponents of the new ruling say it has been a long time coming and a big help to student athletes. Under the new format, athletes who have been enrolled for 1 year can now work part-time and earn up to $2,000 a year. They can also work while their sport is in season. Rutgers University Athletic Director Bob Mulcahy agrees.
They have to at least have the ability to make some dollars so that they can do the things that the other students do on weekends. If they want to go to a movie, if they want to go out to eat, if they want to do some other things, they want to buy some clothes. I think this offers an opportunity. Obviously, they got to comply with the rules and work, but I think that it's a step in the right direction.
But not all coaches and administrators agree. Some say it will bring on a new wave of cheating and allow athletes to be paid for work they've never done. However, coaches we've talked to here in New Jersey applaud the new ruling.
Well, I wouldn't want to be an athletic administrator and have to monitor this whole situation, but I think you can't just not enact legislation because you're so worried about abuse. I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. I think the fact that we did this and we put a cap at $2,000 and hopefully we monitor this well and we give it a try.
And most of the jobs will be right here in school. They won't be off campus, and I think that'll be good for them. I think it's a good boost for them, and as long as they manage their time and hit the books, everything will be fine.
The ruling affects some 300 Division I schools across the country and will go into effect this August. Elsewhere today, Rutgers basketball coach C. Vivian Stringer was named coach